Here is the Lesson 3.7 application packet. The Level 1 question says, you are working two part-time jobs. Working at the local library pays $15 per hour, and working as a personal trainer pays $20 per hour. Last week, you made $800 and worked 45 total hours. Question 1, find out how many hours you worked at each job. And one way to find this is to write a system of equations that represents the scenario. And remember to explain what your variables are. So I'm going to use the letter X and the letter Y. So the first thing is I'm going to define what those letters are representing in the problem. The question says, how many hours were worked at each job? Those are my unknowns. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So let's let the variable X represent the number of hours at the first job, at the library. And then the letter Y can represent the number of hours at the other job, which is the personal trainer job. That part is defining the variables, explaining what the letter X is going to represent, what the letter Y is going to represent. Now we can make the system. So a system is equations that use the X and the Y and also other numbers in the problem to show relationships that are described in the situation. One of the things we're told is that in total we make $800. So we can make an equation that's about the amount of money earned in the week. We get $15 per hour times the number of hours worked at the library. And we work another job. We get $20 per hour times the number of hours worked as a trainer. And then in 1 week, that adds up to $800. So this equation shows a relationship involving money, involving rate of pay and amount of money made. We're also told that we work 45 total hours. So we can say the number of hours worked at the library plus the number of hours worked as a trainer is equal to 45. The second equation is about hours worked. Question B says to solve the system of equations. And this lesson that we're working on is about substitution method. And so I'm specifically going to use substitution method as the technique here. In substitution method, you select one of the equations to put into slope-intercept form. I'm going to choose the second equation. I think that one will be faster to put into slope-intercept form. So here's the second equation, and then by subtracting x from both sides, we can make slope-intercept form. If you like, you can have 45 and then the minus x. This is called substitution method because you take this expression for the variable y and substitute it into the other equation of the system, the one you have not yet used. So 15x plus 20. And then in place of the letter y, I'm going to fill in my negative x plus 45. Now solve this resulting equation. Distributive property first. 20 times 45 is 900. Now combining like terms. And subtract 900 from both sides. And finally divide by negative 5. To get 20. Remember that x is representing the number of hours worked at a library, so saying that we worked there for 20 hours makes logical sense that that's possible. If this turned out to be like a negative number, then we know we messed up somewhere and we would want to go back and check and see where that mistake is. Once we have the answer for x, now we're going to use our expression that we had created for the letter y to plug in the 20 and get the answer for y. And y is equal to 25. Because this is a real-world story problem, I don't want to just leave the answer as x equals 20, y equals 25. I want to interpret those numbers in the context of the question. So we work 20 hours at the library and work 25 hours as a personal trainer. Remember, there's always a way to check that this is right. You can take those numbers, put them back into the equations, or put them back into the context of the story and make sure they actually fit the situation. Number 2, you decide to use the 50-30-20 rule and devote all of your savings towards building an emergency fund of $10,000. Assume you earn the same amount each week. How much do you save towards your emergency fund each week? So the 50-30-20 rule is 50% of your weekly income should go towards paying for your needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% towards saving. Question A says, how much do you save towards your emergency fund each week? Well, how much did we earn in a week again? Remember how that was $800? 20% of that is going to be saved. So 0.20 times 800. That's $160. How many weeks will it take us to save $10,000 to have our emergency fund built up? 10,000 divided by $160 each week will tell us how many weeks it will take. 62.5. It'll take 62 and a half weeks to save $10,000. Question 3, how many fewer weeks would it take to save for your emergency fund if you could work all 45 hours as the personal trainer? Remember, the personal trainer had a higher hourly wage. The hourly wage for the personal trainer was $20 per hour. 20 times 45 makes $900 in the week. If we use the 50-30-20 rule, then we're going to save 20% of that. It's $180 being saved towards the emergency fund each week. To find out how many weeks it will take to make $10,000, we take $10,000 and divide by the $180 each week. 55.5 weeks. The question says, how many fewer weeks will it take? 62.5 subtract 55.5. 7 fewer weeks. With greater income, we're able to save an additional $20 per week. If our goal is a $10,000 emergency fund, it will take us 7 fewer weeks to build up that amount of money. Here is level 2, about interest. Remember from a previous section, the simple interest formula is I equals P times R times T. P is the principal, that is the amount of money that you're figuring out the interest on. R is the interest rate. If it's given as a percent, remember to turn it into its decimal form. And T is the time measured in years. Malik deposits $350. The P, his principal deposit, into a simple interest savings account that earns 2% per year. The interest rate is 2%, which is the decimal 0.02. Soraya deposits $400. That's her principal, into a different simple interest savings account that earns 1% per year. So Soraya's interest rate is 0.01. Question 1, how much does Malik earn in interest in 1 year? Use the formula. So we're going to use information about Malik to do this one. The formula is I equals P times R times T. The principal is $350. The value of R for Malik is 0.02. And we're told 1 year. So T is 1, $7. If Malik puts $350 into a normal savings account at his bank, then in 1 year of time, he'll have made $7 of interest. Let's do this again, but for Soraya. Soraya deposits $400. Her interest rate is less, 0.01, and the time is still 1 year. This makes $4. Question 3, write an equation for each account. Use the letter X to be the number of years that have passed, and let the letter Y be the total interest earned plus the principal. It talks about writing an equation for each account. So we have Malik, we'll write an equation for his, and we have Soraya. We'll write an equation for hers. We're going to end up with 2 equations, and that's why this situation is in the lesson about systems of equations. All right, for Malik, we're told to use the letter Y to be the amount of money in his account. That amount of money will be equal to the principal that he begins with plus the interest that's earned on that account as time goes by. And the interest formula is P times R times T. But we can do better than that. We're told to use the letter X in here, and we also have some numbers that we know from Malik. So the amount of money in his account is equal to the principal, his was $350, plus now the interest, which is $350 times the interest rate times the number of years that he leaves the money in the bank account. We're told to use the letter X for that. Here is an equation for Malik. We can even make this a little bit better by simplifying. 350 plus, and then the 350 times 0.02, we can multiply that on a calculator and actually get a single number to be in front of X. Here's an equation. It's almost like slope-intercept form. Okay, now for Soraya, the same deal. The amount of money in her account is equal to her principal deposit plus the interest that she earns on that money, which is found with the interest formula P times R times T. Now let's put in some actual numbers for Soraya. Her principal was $400. And to find her interest, it was 400 times 0.01 times the number of years that she leaves the money in the account. We're told to use X for that. And once again, let's do one more simplifying step. Remember that 400 times 0.01 was $4 of interest per year. So we can write 4X. Question 4. How long will it take for Malik and Soraya to have the same amount of money? For them to have the same amount of money means that the letter Y for Malik is equal to the letter Y for Soraya. This is finding the solution to a system. This is finding the intersection point of the two lines if we graphed it. Because we're studying substitution method, we can take this expression for Y and substitute it into the letter Y for the first equation. If we want to know when Malik and Soraya have the same amount of money, we take the expression that finds Malik's money and just say that it's equal to the expression that finds Soraya's money. We could subtract 350 from both sides and subtract 4X from both sides. And then dividing by 3, have the answer for X. The letter X was representing number of years, and so my label is years. In 16.6 years, Malik and Soraya will have the same amount of money in their accounts. Now level 3, turning a profit. A break-even analysis is used to figure out how many units of a product need to be sold in order to pay expenses and start to create a profit. This can be done by writing two equations. The first equation that you write is called the cost function, and it represents fixed costs and variable costs. The second equation that you write is called the revenue function. It represents the money earned from selling products. So here's the situation. You open a business to make and sell bracelets. You have to purchase equipment and a laptop to market and sell your product, which costs $1,150. The cost to manufacture one bracelet is $2.40, and you plan to sell them for $11. Question 1, define your variables. What are the things that can vary in the situation? Well, one of the things that will vary is the number of bracelets that you produce and then sell. A second variable is going to depend upon that number, and that second variable is amount of money. If you think about the cost of making the bracelets, the amount of money is going to increase as the number of bracelets that you make increases. On the other hand, if you think about revenue, if you think about the amount of money that you earn by selling the bracelets, that's also going to increase as the number of bracelets increases. Now that we know what our variables are going to represent, we can write a system to represent cost and revenue. I'm going to do an equation for cost first, and then an equation for revenue second. Because this is going to make two equations, that's why it's in the lesson about systems of equations. So cost. In the story, we're told that the total cost or total amount of money that we're spending to run this business is $1,150 to buy the equipment and the laptop, plus it also costs us $2.40 per bracelet. There's an equation. It's sort of like slope-intercept form if you just, switch the two terms around. Okay, now let's make a revenue equation. Revenue is also talking about money. So the amount of money that is revenue is $11 per bracelet that you sell. And we're using the letter X to be the number of bracelets that we sell. Number 3, solve your system to calculate how many bracelets, remember that's going to be the letter X, that you need to sell to break even. So breaking even is when the cost is equal to the revenue. Because we're doing a lesson about substitution method, I'm going to use substitution method to find this break-even point. Substitution method is where you take one of the expressions for y and you substitute it in place of the y in the other equation. Another way to think of it is you could take this expression for y and substitute it for the y in the other equation. It does not matter. Okay, because I wrote the word cost first, I'm going to put 1150 plus 2.40x on the left side of the equation. And then on the other side, I'm going to put the expression for revenue. Now solve this equation. First step, subtract 2.40x from both sides. 8.60x. And then divide by the 8.60. X equals 133.7. Now let's think about the context of the situation. What was X representing? Number of bracelets that needed to be manufactured and then sold. Well, you can't sell a decimal amount of bracelets, so we need to round this for this to make sense in context. 134 bracelets. Buying the equipment and the laptop, making 134 bracelets, and then selling 134 bracelets, we would break even at this business. From that point forward, any additional bracelets that we sell will result in profit for us. Number 4, profit is the money you make when you subtract the costs from the revenue. Write an equation that represents profit that you would make from selling a certain amount of items. From our equation for profit, I'm going to use the letter P to represent profit. This question outright told us how you go about finding profit. Subtract the costs from the revenue. Our revenue is 11x. Subtract. Our cost expression is 1150 plus 2.40x. There's our equation for profit. We can clean this up a little bit, do a little bit of, distributing, rearranging, and so on. So 11x subtract the 2.40x is the 8.60x, and then the minus 1150. Here's an equation that can be used to calculate the amount of profit we make based upon the number of bracelets that we manufacture and then sell. If the value of x is less than 134, then this answer for capital P will turn out to be a negative number. We will have lost money. But if the value of x is a number greater than 134, then when you perform this expression, you're going to get a positive answer. You will have made profit. This concludes the solution video.